morning, and good night. Thanks again for downloading the Body Snatchers podcast. And when you listen, stream, or download straight to your device, CastBox is your best option. If you like what you hear today, don't forget to subscribe and comment. So let's get started. Enjoy the show.
All right, guys, good morning, good night. Thank you for choosing the Body Snatchers podcast. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe. Head over to bodysnatchersmedia.com. I'm joined today by Gia. She's finally back. Gia, say hello.
Yeah, I've returned from my being away at training and then going to conventions. So, well, actually, I go to another convention next weekend, but me.
Gia's lying. She was over at Area 51 rescuing aliens like she normally does.
I was, to make sure y'all can't clap cheeks.
Whoa, I thought the mission was to go and help them, and once we found out they were attractive, to then clap cheeks.
I'm saving them from all the Kyles.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to go clap some alien cheeks.
It's so stupid.
Okay, it's stupid now until you see all these alien babies running around with cool psychic powers and such.
Oh.
Like was it the Starjammers or whatever from X-Men?
The world would literally end.
There's more worlds. We'll go to their world.
Oh, okay.
We'll start anew.
We haven't even been back to the moon since the last time we went. You really think that's going to happen?
That's because there was nobody out there. Nothing but a bunch of old Transformers that came down and started destroying everything.
Oh.
Not nice. Yeah, we don't want those kind of aliens. we want the Chila kind. Boy, let me tell you, Chila from that Broly movie. Oh my God.
Well, as we're not here to talk about Broly, and we're here to talk about Stranger Things season 3.
Gia, ask me how I like my green eggs and ham.
How do you like your green eggs and ham, Tino?
Chila.
I hate you.
Boy, she got cheeks for days. All right, okay. So today we thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about Stranger Things season 3. I loved this season like I love every other season. Gia, how about you? You powered through it pretty quick, didn't you?
I did. I started watching it when I came back from Anime Expo, and then there was like 2 days where I couldn't really watch it because of class and just Brand being crazy. But I went through and I binged the last 4 episodes. Probably about 2 days ago. It was pretty good. Okay,
all right. So yeah, there's like a lot of different stuff going on in this season. I think the most evident thing that's like happening is the fact that, you know, all the kids are like now hitting puberty and they're kind of like in that awkward, some of them are preteens, some of them are kind of full-blown teenagers already, or at least they're trying to be. You know, hormones are all over the place. There's separation occurring like within you know, their group. You know, they're kind of going different ways, and it's not that they want to hurt one another, but they're becoming different people, you know, and some of the people in the group are you know, really excited about that, you know, like, hey, let's go out, let's, you know, just live life, you know. And then there's others that are different, like Will, for instance. You know, he's so big into his Dungeons and Dragons and the group being together, and, you know, he doesn't take very well to everybody kind of slowly, you know, doing their separate thing, or the guys being more infatuated with girls than they are playing Dungeons and Dragons and so forth. And that actually hit really close to home to me, because I definitely felt that. That's something that you know, just kind of happens. You know, you guys like maintain your friendship as you grow up, but it's never quite the same because people go on to different things. They change, you know. I don't know how you took that.
No, I mean, it's just the same thing you see with any kids, any time period. There's always the ones that start moving on to, you know, letting their hormones take over. And then there's other ones that are just like, well, I really like this one thing. And I think that dynamic between them like kind of hurt a little bit because,
yeah,
like, for instance, you can still, and you know, obviously, like, looking back, this is like, as an adult looking back, you can definitely still make time for your friends and not be, you know, an asshole, but and then still have time for females or males depending on what, you know, you're into. Like, so I kind of really felt bad for Will, because he was just trying to, like, he was trying to bring some normalcy back into his friendship, like his group, and they were just like, and you know, they could have been like, we're not really into playing Dungeons and Dragons right now, but then they kept just being an asshole to him. So when he flipped out and he was like, nah, F you guys, and ran off into the woods, then they were like, oh crap, we actually hurt his feelings.
Yeah, you know, because they were only thinking about one thing. And it makes sense because I've been on both sides of the fence. You know, I've had, you know, your best childhood friends kind of, you know, disappear for a girl, you know, who, you know, it might be completely ridiculous at the time and looking back, you know, whenever that little love swing has has failed them, as it usually does at a young age. But yeah, I just, you know, I know it's like that weird separation. And also to, you know, kind of move away from somebody, you know, where they're hitting you up and they're like, hey, let's, you know, play that video game, or, you know, maybe not even that. I mean, even as kids, like, let's go link our Game Boys up at the park. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, but I'm going to go hang out at this girl's house and watch movies I never heard of that sound terrible because I think I might get laid afterwards. I remember being that like 14, 15-year-old kid. So I don't know. It was just interesting to me and hit kind of close to home. And, you know, one of them in particular was the Mike and Elle situation, like where they were just locked lips 24/7. That one didn't bother me as much just because they kind of focused on that one and brought Hopper into the situation and made it what started off as being, you know, a very funny thing, you know, easy to make, you know, memes out of and just hilarious. But when it came full circle and came to the end of the series, the gravity of, you know, what happened, without giving away any spoilers or anything, it became this very sad yet beautiful type of thing that it evolved into. I really liked that small separate story that they kind of put within the story.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can agree with that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was at with that. Now, just kind of jumping into, you know, more meat and potatoes type things, because, you know, we're just talking about story elements and stuff of that nature. I really I didn't think I was going to like it. In fact, at first I thought it was kind of corny, but it did grow on me. So as you guys all know, if you've seen, you know, the events of season 1 and 2, there were scientists that had the lab going that had to do with, you know, the creation of Elle to some degree, you know, and her sister and the other people who, you know, were mentioned with that we've never seen. And also, you know, kind of breaking into the upside down place, that barrier between worlds, if you want to call it. Which that's pretty much what it is. And in this one, for reasons that I didn't really see, maybe you did, Gia, like everything seems kind of to be speculation, but the Russians come to town and they're trying to like break into it. And I thought that was just kind of sloppy writing at first, or just seemed too corny for me. But as the series kind of powered through, I was like, you know what? Actually, this fits. I'm really feeling this.
Well, for me, like, I assumed that it would probably be a thing at some point just because they were building up to it. And I think Elle even does a flashback to when she's being held in the lab initially. And it kind of flashes back to Russians being a thing. So I'm not too surprised there. I was a little bit surprised that they were just like buying up land and immediately opening up a second portal less than a year later, right, in the middle of town.
Yeah, no, that definitely worked out. I guess, you know, like, I guess it was kind of like their outfits, like their militant outfits that they had, that like when there's a scene where Hopper and Will's mom kind of like put on like these Russian disguises, so to speak. And it's just like what's happening is very serious, but it's kind of hilarious at the same time.
It's more hilarious because, who is it? Will's mom, when she throws on the uniform that she throws on, and she just looks like she's literally swimming in it.
Yeah.
And so, like, she looks
like Chicago's new mayor. I don't know if you've seen her.
I have. But here's the thing. So, like, for me, I have to wear extra small uniforms, or literally I look like that. Like, I tried to upgrade to just a regular small uniform because my hips got kind of bigger than necessary for the extra small. And, you know, to get rid of the, like, slight tight feeling around my waist, I was like, fuck it, let's go up to small. And literally, Gia's hips don't lie. I knew that joke was coming, and I couldn't stop it.
You said hips like 2 times. There's no way I couldn't.
I tried to keep talking so that you couldn't slip that in there, and then it just didn't happen.
Oh, I'm already on Shakira's Instagram as we're talking. Yeah, wow. I'm a terrible human being.
Yeah, so like I put that uniform on, and it literally just looked like I was some kid wearing my father's uniform to school. Or it was bring your kid to work day. And I was like, all right, never doing this again. Mm-hmm. But that's like what she made me feel that way again. I was like, oh man, that does not fair. And you know, obviously they're not going to find a uniform that perfectly fits her. So I like that they went that route. Because obviously, like, I didn't see any like female military folks down there at all. So she's obviously wearing a guy's uniform that they stripped off of some dudes. So It is what it is.
Now, how did you enjoy the scenes with Will's older brother and Nancy? Because I really like those scenes. They're interns working for a newspaper company, and Will's older brother, he's doing his photo thing. He's in the the back room developing photos and things of that nature, and Nancy is basically, she's like the help around the office. She's getting everybody's lunches and breakfast and all that. She's like under a secretary. It's crappy work, but she really wants to become this awesome news reporter in a world that's definitely dominated by men, shitty men, 100%, that just think she's a joke. All of her ideas are a joke. And she's kind of an idiot the way she goes about like trying to push through and be right about stuff. But at the same time, like I can't help but understand and feel her, like, where she's coming from.
Well, so for me, I'm going to keep going back to this theme. I like how they left it where kids and teenagers and even like fresh out of high school teenagers are making mistakes that people in that age range normally make. And with Nancy, that's absolutely true also. Like she went from, people listening to her being right and people just going, okay, it's Nancy, she knows what she's talking about, to working in a place where she's literally treated terribly. And then the guys mock her the whole time, calling her Nancy Drew, like the freaking detective. So, but you know what? Being who I am, I was literally mad anytime they did that, because I was like, she's the only one in here that actually like knows that something's going on and y'all are just being assholes.
To be asshole.
Yeah. And then I thought back to it. And that was a really commonplace thing too during that time period, is like women, like whenever they would push for things or try to be serious about things, for the most part. Now there were your here and there moments, but like a lot of times women were mocked in the workplace. And I was just like, dang, thank goodness I wasn't in the 70s, because I would have been in jail for punching people and being a dick. Like,
yeah, I mean, the world was a different place, and you and I caught the ass end of the 80s stuff and going into the 90s and the transition, and it just kind of it felt familiar to me, obviously from a totally different perspective. But I don't know, I just thought it was interesting, and I take a second, stop what we're talking about. The show in general, just where it's hitting these themes, that you brought up, they did such a good job capturing like how all of that really was, because everything that you felt some type of way, because everybody loves Stranger Things. It's very rare that you find somebody that watches it who's like, I don't like this. The reason you're liking it so much isn't just because Elle has powers and there's some sci-fi universe stuff, but it's because that shit hits close to home.
Yeah, they make it very relatable with their personalities and things that are going on. It isn't about Elle's power, and it really hasn't even been about Elle's power since season 1. Like in season 2, it was like maybe a little bit, and it was more so like her trying to find her place and running into other people kind of like her, which one, I was sad that somehow they didn't get any word out to them to come back and help out with this stuff back in Hawkins.
I was
dropped
upset
the
as
S-bomb
well.
Because I was like, you have Elle, who's like very obviously there's stuff going on with her powers, especially noticeable towards the end, and you have this whole group of kids that's just like her. Especially like the one older chick that had her dressed up like a greaser, basically. And
she was like bitching.
Oh yeah, and she had her like hair slicked back and wearing her leather jacket and stuff.
And I love that. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah, and I feel like that was another person that could have been helpful there, but it's like
that might be a trump card for season 4, though.
Maybe. Speaking of, did you watch through after the last episode through the credit scene? The initial one that popped up?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of speculation there, but I don't want to talk about it at all, just because anything we say would be like way too major of a spoiler. However, if you haven't finished it, 100% wait for the credits to end as if this was like a Marvel movie, because there are you kind of get closure, but I mean, it really leaves you on the edge of your seat wondering, okay, well, what's going to happen? What happened? There's a lot of things that are like kind of answered, and it's just, you have to see it. It's not one of those things you should read about or whatever.
Yeah. And like, you'll know which ending scene is the one we're talking about, because literally it'll be a black screen with some snowfall and the credits running. Because when I looked at it, I was like, that's different. So I started like fast forwarding through it, and then it took me to like the in between season 3 to season 4 scene.
Yes.
the bridge, if you may.
Oh yeah. Now I want to switch up gears a little bit. There's a couple characters that I really want to touch base on and talk about. So that would be Erica, who is Lucas's little sister. As you guys all know, if you've listened to any of our older Stranger Things episodes, Steve has pretty much been my favorite character for a multitude of reasons. I love Steve, still do. But I think if I had to choose a favorite character this season, it would definitely be Erica. Once again, Lucas's little sister. And she's a little girl that comes in and visits with Steve, who's currently working at the ice cream shop. And that's a whole nother thing. We'll come to that in a minute because I absolutely love that. But Erica's character was wonderful. Oh my God. Like, I was a little bit surprised that she was Lucas' little sister. Like I wasn't, you know, I was like really the only other black kid in town. But you know, if you think about the way that those things are out in Indiana, especially in the 80s, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, her character was just adorable. Like every time she started talking, I was just like, oh, I'm going to get annoyed. I'm going to hate her. And then she would just say something that was just like so hilarious and like warms the heart. And once they introduced Dustin into her scenes, and Dustin, you know, because how do I describe it? Erica's kind of a know-it-all. Not kind of.
Erica's
definitely
not just a know-it-all. She is a closet nerd.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She's a know-it-all, and Justin addresses this as being, hey, you know what? You're actually a nerd. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm not like you. You're a nerd. You know what I mean? Like all sassy.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just that. It was the fact that like, so Erica's really good with numbers, and that was her downfall, is she let Dustin know that she was really good with numbers because she calculated something outright in her head. And then Dustin is just like, hey, bro, you a nerd? And she's like, I'm not a nerd. And he's like, oh, I bet you are. And then he starts going into all these reasons, like the very first one obviously being the math. And she's like, well, obviously you just heard that I'm good at math. And then he like lists off 2 other reasons and then goes into a whole explanation why the very last reason makes her a nerd. And she was just like, you son of a bitch, basically. And I laughed so hard.
Because that hits close to home for some people. It's funny because I felt myself being Dustin in a lot of situations where I have, friends where I know that they're nerds, but they don't know. Like they're closet nerds, you know, like they make fun of, us for being adults and enjoying Pokemon still and video games and whatever, this whole podcast in itself. And then we'll have certain conversations where it's like, bro, you understand you're just like me, right? You're in denial, which is a river in Egypt. Stop it.
Yeah.
So, that is what it is. But, the very end, without saying too much, there's a scene where Dustin ends up bringing a bunch of old like nerd material from when they were a little bit younger, because she's only a couple years younger than these guys.
Yeah, she's 10, I think she said, because someone was like, where'd this 4-year-old child come from? And she's like, I'm 10, excuse you.
Right. But Dustin ends up bringing her a bunch of like, older, nerd material that the kids are no longer, really using anymore, like the D&D games and stuff like that. Just a bunch of like nerd books. And it's just really cool to see, him supporting it. And she, at this point, has kind of accepted it and is like, I don't think she says too much, but gives him a look that's like a, thank you. This means a lot to me. Yeah.
So she kind of glances at him, and then like when she looks down into the box and she pulls out what's in it, then she's just like, it was one of those looks of realization, like, okay, I'm a nerd. Let me just accept it.
And she looked happy about it, and that was really cool. So I enjoyed that. And in fact, I kind of hope like when she gets a little bit older that maybe her and Dustin have like a better relationship, or even like I don't want to say like romantic, but kind of just are close, when she gets a little bit older and they're kind of both in high school at the same time. And I wouldn't be surprised if the show went in that direction, because their chemistry was just really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And another thing I enjoyed that I'm sure Gia loved, and anybody who's our age that's a nerd definitely appreciated, when Dustin had built that radio tower and finally touched base with Susie Poo from,
or one called it Cerebro, because I died when they called it Cerebro, and I was like, they did do that several times. I hope you guys know what Cerebro is if you're listening. If not, this may not be the podcast for you. Oh man, we probably need to go and visit Marvel and read a lot of X-Men comics.
Right? Professor X did what? Yeah, Cerebro.
He made a what thing?
But yeah, man, when they busted out like Never Ending Story, like I could accept the fact that they started singing it. And it made me feel some type of way. because I was like, this isn't, no. And then I was like, oh my God, it is. And then when like the music hits and like they start picking up, I was just, it was like the most pleasant surprise ever.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. I thought that whole scene was funny, first of all, because one, it did come out of nowhere. And two, you have people being chased by a big old monster. And the song is just going over the radio. And they're just like, a song. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me right now? This song is not a short song. You're telling me that they're literally being chased for like 3 minutes while y'all belt out this ballad to each other. Not to mention the people down in like the Russian facility and everything. And I was just like, holy crap.
Oh, yeah.
All because, I do want to touch bases on that moment. So Dustin is asking Susie for Planck's constant. And this is something I just wanted to touch on because I got excited because I am currently in astronomy classes. And that is one of the constants that we have to use to calculate things. And the constant that they stated, which was 6.62607,004, was actually the constant that was established in 2014. So, like, it was a really cool nod to astrophysics and astronomy, but it was incorrect because in 1973, the Planck's constant, it was officially recognized as 6.626176. And that is, again, it's changed more recently in 2018. And it's just because people are getting better and better at the math and figuring out the actual calculations. So that was just something really, that was something really nerdy that I thought was cool because of being in astronomy class. Like we recently learned about Planck's constant probably a week and a half ago. So for me, when I heard that, it was different than what we're currently learning in class. So I went and I asked my instructor and I explained to him the scene or whatever. And he was like, see, it wasn't even that in 1973. And that's how that all came about.
I might as well add to this. Me also being a nerd, bit of the different spectrum. I noticed right away, like probably one of my biggest issues with that was when they were singing, because it's dual voices going. Those radios in the 80s were not designed to do that. So therefore, only one of those voices could have been happening at one time. So the way that I take it is either A, they were both singing and we only heard Dustin's voice, or B, they were both singing and Susie was singing as well, but like just for the sake of the show, like they decided to allow us to hear it. I believe this because afterwards, Dustin makes a statement and says something like, "They're for your ears only, Susie," which leads me to believe that like, okay, yeah, we heard the whole thing, but obviously, he was the only one singing, and that's why he keeps getting made fun of because nobody really brought up the fact that, she was singing with them or anything of that nature.
Well, I could see that, but I could also see it as being like, obviously, because they're not going for 100% accuracy in this show, that maybe they did hear, but they were still just like on the point of making fun of him because, she got him to sing that song. Because the whole time they're like,
I refuse to believe that.
For me.
Because if that's what happened, then that means that the inaccuracies are too strong and I can't watch this show anymore.
You're a liar.
I'm a truther. That's a Drake and Josh nod. I don't know if you ever watched that show on Nickelodeon.
I did.
I ain't calling you a liar. Well, I ain't calling you a truther.
Yeah, I remember.
The good old times. Okay, so getting to the fun stuff, really there's only a few other characters I want to talk about, which would mostly be Steve and Billy. And I'm kind of glad they didn't interact in this one. Just because, being a huge Steve fan, like he did come back and do the best he could with what he was dealing with Billy for season 2. I mean, because that was a whole lot, for anybody to deal with.
Getting his ass whooped so much.
He came back, okay, and he folded Billy, who is a freaking muscle brown testosterone freak of nature.
Yeah, that's true.
He did the best he could. I'm not mad at Steve.
I did the best I could.
Dustin made fun of him all.
My best.
Stranger Things the whole season 3 the whole time by stating, "Have you ever actually won a fight, Steve?" Leave Steve alone. But when Steve got his job at Chips Ahoy, oh my God, it was funny, it was relatable, it warmed the heart, and it was kind of cool because you're looking at somebody who was like on the upper echelon of high school who, for reasons, wasn't able to go away to college. And I like that they brought up Purdue, which is in Indiana, just to kind of keep the story strong. But he has college students that come to, you know, his shop to buy ice cream, you know, and they're girls, and he's trying to do his thing, you know, Steve the hair, you know, to talk to these girls, and they're not going because they're like, look, you're just a loser now, you know, is kind of where they were taking it. They're like, you hang out with kids, and, you know, you work at the ice cream shop, you make no money, you're not going to college. I mean, you know, you're a loser. And that kind of hit me close to home because I went to community college myself. So, I mean, I know what it feels like, you know, when you're talking to people who, you know, think they're better than you because they're now spending crazy amounts of money going to a university where they're going to end up probably being a manager at that ice cream shop someday. So, you know, that's how that goes. But it was great. And the ice cream, they made a banana split where they made it look like a sailboat because he has this stupid little sailor suit on the whole time. Like that's the theme of the ice cream shop.
Scoops ahoy. Like, ahoy.
The sales were waffle cones, and I can't find that on the internet. I tried to see like if I could look up a recipe, my fat ass, and yeah, like I think that was unique to the show. I can't find a single image on Google with
literally just make it yourself.
I know that, but I wanted to see an example, and I'm telling you, it doesn't exist outside of Stranger Things.
Well, that's
like
cool.
You can find both.
I have faith in your creativity to make this thing.
That's where you're wrong, Gia, because I started to make one, and my fat ass, I had all the ingredients, and as I was making it, I started to crush the waffle cone and put it into the bowl of ice cream so that I could just eat it all mushed together. It was like I was making my own homemade Ben and Jerry's like ice cream.
Well, that is impatience. That is not your lack of creativity.
Well, dude, it was good.
I hope my sigh was picked up.
Okay. All right. Well, it was absolutely delicious. And also the awkward relationship with his coworker where they like hated each other and then like it kind of built and then kind of went to the left. How'd you feel about that?
I was not surprised because even with her talking to him about like being in class with him, it still never struck me as that's where the conversation was going. And then because she was just putting off certain vibes and it made complete sense. And I was like, oh, okay, this is why it didn't feel right.
Yeah, I got that vibe, but like refused to believe it just because I really wanted Steve to be happy. You know, I can't help it. Like I love Steve, awesome dude. And like he was starting to kind of get excited. And then when she reveals the truth to him, like he's cool with it. He accepts it. But for a quick moment, he's like, damn.
His heart was broken again.
Yeah, for just a moment, he was like Nancy all over again, but worse.
Yeah. So there was this meme that was floating around, and it's got a picture of both of them standing next to each other, and it's like, being bisexual is when you have a crush on both Robin and Steve, and I laughed so hard.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And you know what solidified their relationship for me? Of course, you know, I loved all the quirkiness with them working at the ice cream shop and getting to finally know one another outside of just hating each other. But it's when they get taken by the Russians, and you know, it's spoiler area. So if you guys want to exit now, please do so. Head over to bodysnatchersmedia.com. I'm sorry, but just to touch base on it, they get tortured by the Russians to some extent, and drugged with like types of truth serum and stuff. Oh my God, yes. When the Russians are screaming that at Steve, and he's like just screaming back, "I work at Scoops Ahoy. Stop hitting me!" Like, who sent you? Scoops Ahoy.
Scoops Ahoy sent me, and it was so funny because like he could have just been like, "We accidentally intercepted your broadcast, and then we freaking
cracked it."
Yeah, cracked the code, and it's so funny when Robin finally yelled it at him. But yeah, it was so fun, and they're like, poor Steve, because he's like, "Who do you work for?" Steve's like, "I said Chips Ahoy," and he's like, "We found you guys by accident." And then the guy like sends the dude back to punch him again. He's like, "Are you serious?"
Oh my God,
poor fucking Steve, just getting his ass worked.
It was hilarious.
I think his mutant power would be the kinetic energy type, where he just takes a beating so much and then he eventually wins.
Don't come for Steve like that. although that is kind of a cool power. It's basically Black Panther's new suit.
Yeah.
Beat my ass a little bit and wait.
Oh, we keep skimming over Billy. So
no, I wanted to end the show with Billy. I was going to bring him up.
Okay,
that's
cool.
Last thing. You can start. Go ahead.
Billy is almost completely different than he was in season 2. Like once he got that ass whooping for being a racist piece of garbage, It's like he turned a whole new leaf. And I was actually, so Billy ends up being, because we're on spoiler train now, right? Like we already broke that spoiler barrier.
Yeah, we can talk about some stuff.
Yeah, he's basically the bad guy at this point because he is the first person to get taken over by the Mind Flayer after Will, basically. So Will still has like a slight connection, like he can feel when it's around, but he's not under its control anymore. And Billy just kind of gets... Now, to be fair, I thought it was the perfect karma train because he kept hitting on Mike's mom. It was Mike's mom, right? Mike's
mom is hot.
Yeah, and then like they were supposed to...
Big Nancy.
Oh my God.
Super Nancy.
They were supposed to meet up to bang it out basically. And then she ends up ditching. Like she's like, oh, my family is important. And she stays home, which is good. But Billy was like still heading to wherever the meetup point was when he got jacked up. And I was like, oh.
I love how the Mind Flayer for everybody else, it just like caught them in a corner or like an office, you know, like a normal thing. But for Billy, this guy's going like 60 miles an hour on a dirt road and something just whacks his car and basically forces him into it. Like the Mind Flayer was like, nah, you gonna be the first one.
You gonna be my thing. And then Billy went around like kidnapping people basically and dragging it to him or dragging them to it.
Yeah.
And they didn't even really address all the missing people. Like, because they turn into... Speaking of, I will say this, in that first episode, I was eating food. You did not warn me or anything. I was eating, and when all those rats started going gooey, my stomach turned, and I was like, what? And I had to put my food down until after that scene.
I was eating, speaking of the ice cream that I... Well, okay, backtrack. I paused Stranger Things and went to the store to go buy ice cream because Chips Ahoy was like doing something to me where I was like, dude, I need ice cream now. So that's a little backstory for that. And then when I came back, I hadn't seen the rats yet because I did it early. I'm like, I really want to power through all of Stranger Things today. So I chose to get a chocolate version of like Rocky Road, so chocolate ice cream Rocky Road or whatever. And I kid you not, when it started to melt, it looked exactly like the guts of those rats. And I was like, damn, I've made a mistake. Yeah, I mean, I still ate it, but like, you know, I was just like, all right, we can see skip now.
Yeah, I just put my food down for a second.
My only major complaint, and it's not a huge complaint, but like, okay, in season 2, when they were doing like a lot of flashbacks for Elle, for instance, to some degree, she got some closure, and I really appreciated that we got that. I thought that we were going to get that with Billy because when they went to, you know, that dark place in his mind, and showed images of his mother and what actually happened that day and how his father is, you know, a POS and everything.
I mean, we already knew his father was a POS, but yeah, it showed how his mom disappeared.
But we got to see his father a couple times interacting with his mother, who was the exact opposite, you know. And I just really was hoping, you know, we would get just a little something. I mean, I'm not really sure what I expected or what I wanted. You know, of course, I didn't want her to fly out necessarily and appear and all that, but maybe a phone call or like a letter. But I guess the letter wouldn't work because of, you know, the way they actually ended it. You know, they already had a letter going for something totally different, which, by the way, put me in my feelings. I was on the verge of tears listening to that. So.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And there was a lot more in there than was alluded to at the beginning of the show.
Right? I thought it was going to be all of, what's her name, Joy's words. And when they took that twist, I was like, oh my God, stop. Please stop. Please stop. And you know what is an interesting fact is Millie, the character that, actress that plays Elle, she, when she read that, like she was in like actual tears. She was moved so emotionally, like, and they did it in one take. And I didn't catch that. She was on her Instagram talking about that. I thought that was powerful, you know, like that they had such a strong connection to what they're doing that, like, you know, you really got to see what's, you know, actually happening on screen. It wasn't forced. It wasn't fake. She wasn't thinking about something sad. Like she was for real, like moved, you know, and that's really all I want to say about that. I know we're hitting spoilers, but I just feel like it would be a total disservice to ruin that for anybody.
Well, of course, I'm not going to talk about exactly what was said or what it's in reference to. That is a moment that people are just going to have to get hit like a truck in the feels.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of touched base on pretty much everything we wanted to outside of that damn scene with what was it, the Slurpee, the cherry and the strawberry.
Dude, the whole interaction with Alexei was the best.
It was.
Especially when Joyce yells. So there was a few key moments where Joyce just yells at people, and I was dying because I was like, that's how it feels with me, and Bran won't listen, and I tell him like 3 times to do something and he keeps going, so then I just lose my proverbial shit. And that's exactly Joyce in all those situations. And one of them was yelling at Alexei, and then a little bit later it was Jim harassing him because dude really wanted a cherry Slurpee and there weren't cherry Slurpees, so Jim got him a strawberry one. And that whole scene and interaction was so good too, because he
They're
allowed
not the same.
him, yeah.
But I also like strawberry.
Yeah. He says,
asshole.
What did he say? He says strawberry's fine. Or he likes strawberry too. I think that's what was said.
Right? For no reason. I don't know. They just did a wonderful job with that. It puts a smile on your face. It's consistent. It's unexpected. It added something new to this season that, we hadn't seen before. And, I truly hope that when they do come out with a season 4, that they're able to continue, moving forward. Because like we said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, they find so many relatable things that hit for so many different people. And as they're progressing and growing, like they're still doing it. They're still hitting, just like with different phases, different aspects of your life, so it goes from being, happy and cute and adorable to kind of sad, but loving, it's like all these different factors that are being touched on. And I just hope that they keep going. I almost hope that they wait 2 years before they come out with the next one, so the kids can be old enough to where it's a very easy transition. I would hate for them to try to act like there's a time skip and the kids to act as if they're much older than they actually are. So,
well, I feel like that won't be too hard. And plus, I mean, kids in that age range do tend to grow really quickly. Like, for instance, Bran right now, even between like last year and this year, he's like put on 6 inches. And yesterday we were walking somewhere and he was just so tall next to me. And it's moments like that I realize kids just grow ridiculously fast. So I feel like even if they did it just 1 year, they could probably pull off a 2-year time skip, especially since like those kids are just going from being like 9, 10 up into like the older ones. I think Millie's like 14 right now or something like that.
Yeah, she's pretty young, but yeah. I mean, the difference is astonishing. And I feel like I need to make a point. I hate most of the internet. I want to bring this up real quick before we exit the show. So a couple weeks ago, which is really kind of the same thing that we're just now discussing, I posted 2 pictures with. Oh yeah. I apologize, I forget her name, but of the girl that played X-23, and all I was saying,
Laura. I'm sorry, she's Laura in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. But just like she had looked so much older, in comparison to how she was before.
And I know exactly where you're going with this. And I just want to caveat, hey guys, and even some ladies, if your immediate reaction to someone going, hey, this character or this person looks older, or it looks like they hit puberty, that's not them saying that like, hey, this girl looks hot or this dude looks hot. It's them just saying, hey, I didn't realize this person was as old as they are, because kids in that age range tend to like look a lot older after a certain point, because they're in puberty. And if you take it there, you're gross. You're a gross human being, and you deserve to be removed from the gene pool.
Agreed. It put me in a really awkward situation because I've never, I shouldn't say never, but I felt really kind of offended, and surprised and disgusted, because as an adult human being, I mean, you should be able to have a conversation like that. If you go to not even family, if you have a friend who has a kid, like take Gia for instance, if I'm discussing her kid and like I hadn't seen him forever, I'm like, oh man, he looks so much bigger, like man, it's only been like a year, like he's like a foot taller, like he just doesn't even look like the same person. It's like a young man. There's nothing that should be taken out of context with that. And that's what happened with that image that I posted. of her, and it wasn't anything, over the top or sexual or anything of that nature. It was just a picture of her from the movie just standing. And then there was another picture that looked like it was like a selfie or something like that, but it wasn't like revealing clothing or a weird beach photo shoot or, anything that should have open the imagination to something, down that line. And I think if you're the kind of person that's where your mind goes to immediately, you kind of need to stop and like check your morals and maybe get some help, because that's not okay. And it's not okay to accuse other people of having that. That's not funny. That's like, I'd whoop somebody's ass, like if they, had that kind of intention.
Oh yeah. If I ever have a daughter and that is a statement said, like I post a picture and she's like 14 or 15 and somebody's like, oh, and that's another. So that is like a common reoccurring theme, because sometimes like there'll be a picture of like a teenager like cosplaying that gets shared in the group or something like that. And like, dudes, some of y'all just stop, please. Because like you shouldn't be like, oh, her boobies or whatever. Because like, especially when it's noted that someone's underage, like you're going too far. Stop.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
I like how this turned into a public service announcement right at the end. Don't be creeps.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's like we're nerds and we enjoy talking about stuff. And, obviously we're all over the internet and we're going to have conversations with people. And Gia and I, being in a social media limelight, on a C-level aspect, don't talk about that stuff too much on the podcast, but I just think it's important to bring up sometimes. Like we're human beings, we don't want to get accused of something of that nature, and I don't think that you should accuse people of things like that. And I also think that if you associate with people who think that way, you maybe need to get some different friends, because that's, by association they're going to look at you and be like, oh, you guys are like this, you think that way, and that's just terrible. All we're doing here is critiquing and discussing. So I don't know. I guess I'll leave that at that. So going on to, Stranger Things season 3, because we are definitely at time.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it, I strongly encourage you to watch it as quickly as possible. If you have seen it, please, jump into the comment section of whatever social media platform you'd like that we're on. And just have a conversation with us about it. We'd love to talk about it.
Please do.
Anything you want to add, Gia?
I've missed you all, and I'll try to be on more podcasts.
God, don't
the fans, not you, Tino. I talk to you like every day, so.
Well, we gotta. You know what? We'll probably do a show soon, discussing a little bit of Final Fantasy Shadowbringers, which recently came out. That's been
Well, I mean, we should be ideally streaming it every other week, so they'll see us.
I have been streaming it. I have revamped my Twitch channel.
But it's on your Twitch channel, not the Body Snatchers Twitch channel.
Yeah, well, you guys can get to know us on a personal level. Gia has a Twitch channel as well that I'll make sure to share out to you guys and probably revamp on the website. So head over to bodysnatchersmedia.com. If it is morning time, good morning. If it's the evening time, good night. If you're working a job you hate, just remember, Steve did what he had to do at Chips Ahoy, and you can do it too. You can get through this.
Wait, is this synonymous with our Steve now too? Our Steve that left us because he had other things to take care of? Is he Chips Ahoy Steve now? Or Chips Scoops Ahoy? I went straight to the cereal.
Our ex-Steve will never be that cool.
Oh.
Ever.
Oh. Poor Steve.
You can go to hell.
We still love you, Steve. Rest in peace. Good night. Good day.